Singapore. Sammy lay awake at 3 a.m. The house had been quiet for hours. The Chen's chef had prepared a sumptuous dinner with many courses, but conversation had been strained. Portions of his favorite foods were heaped on his plate, but the food stuck in his throat. How could this warm, smiling couple, people he'd known his whole life, be bad? He couldn't believe his godparents could betray the Cahills with that maniac outcast. He kept checking his phone, but his parents didn't respond to any messages he'd left on the home or office phones. That worry was a buzz at the back of his brain. They didn't check in with him constantly, but they always told him when they went away. Over and over, he tried to remember the past, tried to think of an indication that the Chens were power hungry. All he could remember were masses of flowers in Tiff's arms as she filled vases, wonderful trips to gardens and museums, and the gift of cooking lessons on his 16th birthday. Thoughtful godparents, beautiful hosts. This house had been a dream of luxury and consideration. But had there been things he hadn't seen? Strain on the corner of James's mouth, Tiff's need to control. He remembered going swimming once before breakfast, how she'd come out with a tight smile and a towel. "We swim in the afternoons, Sammy. Breakfast is at 7. And hadn't his father hinted that he and James had had a falling out? Sammy had forgotten. He remembered his father turning away, a shrug, an evasive wave of his hand. "We're not as close as we used to be. People change." And what had he always been missing in this house? Spontaneous laughter, snacks in the kitchen, staying up past bedtime. No, the house was run a certain way, and you got the hang of it fast. And it was all so pleasant, so luxurious, you didn't mind. Was this house too perfect? Was the thing that was missing summed up in one word, like fun or love? He flipped over again. There was more to learn here, but how to find it? There could be reasons that his father sent his lab notes to James, couldn't there? But James wasn't a scientist. He wouldn't be able to decipher those notes. Algae was surprisingly complicated. Sometimes he had had trouble following his father's explanations about biofuels and hazards. Sammy sat up. Wait a second. Had Mabel said combustion? Sammy threw back the light coverlet. He pulled on his jeans and tiptoed out into the common area. He opened Nellie's door and crept inside. She was sleeping deeply, one arm flung out into the path of moonlight that striped her bed. He leaned close. "Nellie," he whispered. The next thing he knew, a fist had rammed into his throat and he was on his back on the floor, seeing stars. "Haven't we been through this?" he croaked. "I seem to remember you once hit me with a fire extinguisher." "It was an accident." Nellie hopped up wringing her hands. Sammy, you have to stop surprising me. Are you okay? I think so, he said. Here, let me help you. Sit on the bed. Take a deep breath. It's a good thing I was half asleep, or I really would have clocked you. He looked at her wide-eyed. That one will do. What's the matter? Why did you come in? Nellie tucked her legs underneath her and leaned toward him. Biofuels, he said. Oh, good, because that's exactly what I want to talk about at 3 a.m. It was something Mabel said. Combustion. Right. Meaning something could blow up. Like algae can blow up? I didn't get that. No, not like algae. Like biofuel. That's powering a ship. That's my dad's big secret project. Nellie's eyes went wide. She swallowed hard. Talk. Sammy sat cross-legged across from her. This isn't my field, but I've talked enough to my dad to get a lot of it. There are a number of practical problems driving fuel from algae. If it could be perfected, it could be awesome, because the development could be carbon neutral, meaning it won't take huge amounts of energy to make energy. Exactly. Lots of scientists and companies are working on this. It was my dad who found this new species of algae. He called it Pedistrum mananum, after my mom. Aw, sweet. It had all these properties that my dad saw could solve lots of problems with other kinds of algae had in terms of processing them into fuel. There was only one problem. It's extremely unstable with a high combustion rate. You mean algae can blow up? Well, not in its natural state, but when it's being processed, because you need massive amounts of it, right? It just needs a stabilizing agent, an X factor, if you will. Not as easy as it sounds. Then my dad reads this paper on ice algae, and boom, something clicked. Science is so amazing that way. You find stuff in other fields, and all of a sudden, connections start firing. Then, you're off on a new direction and solving way more problems than you thought. Sammy, you are the most adorable nerd, but can you stick to the point? Right, something about ice algae was the key. Some sort of stabilizing structure. Sammy clutched his hair, something he did when he couldn't remember a detail. I don't remember, but my dad's brain just starts going in a new direction. He goes to see the scientist and asks to study his research. It looks promising, so they do some experiments together in this guy's lab. Did they discover the X Factor? No, just other cool stuff. Nellie slumped back, disappointed. Oh. But here's the thing. The last time we talked about it, he was super excited. He said he went back over the notes and they'd missed something. He felt pretty close. He was going to go back to this guy, back to the lab. But when was that? A couple of months ago, maybe. It's funny, he stopped talking about it, and I forgot to follow up. I was busy with my graduate project. So maybe he did it. Maybe he found the X Factor, or he thought he did, and he was waiting to tell you. Sammy, the Titanic 2 is running on biofuel, some sort of incredible new green technology. What if there's a connection here? I know, that's what I was thinking, but I can't see how it could happen, really. My dad could have solved the X Factor, but still, it would have been years away from being perfected. Don't scientists ever have a sudden breakthrough that zooms them ahead? Isn't that what you just said before? Sure, all the time. But in this case, the fuel would have to be manufactured. There'd have to be factory and everything. Oh, like you've never been in a secret factory. Sammy sat up straighter. Good point. Nellie's fingers drummed on the coverlet. We have to get a look at that file. It's on the Chen's computer. Do you know all the names of the kids? David, Howard, William, and Mabel. Dahowima. Nellie swung her feet off the bed. Come on. It's time to do a little breaking and entering.